I don't get it.
So give it up for an expert on raking them over the...
As the Baron learned the hard way last season, the gang makes a lot of inside jokes, so it pays to stay in the loop. Join ScreenRant as we break down the most important twists and need-to-know revelations before watching What We Do in the Shadows Season 6.
What you ask of me, it is simply not possible.
The Season 5 finale exit interview ended with this big twist. After Guillermo paid Derek to turn him into a vampire, everyone, even the Baron, kept the secret from Nandor. But he inevitably found out. However, after raging for a bit, Nandor eventually forgives Guillermo, thanks in part to comedian Patton Oswalt. Later, Nandor even solves Guillermo's half-blood problem, making him drink human blood and finally turning him into a legit vampire. So in a way, it was still Nandor who gave Guillermo the gift of vampirism. Yet as it turns out, Guillermo couldn't stomach the constant murder that the vampire life entails. In fact, Nandor reveals to the documentary crew his own secret. Nandor always knew Guillermo wasn't cut out to be a vampire. This is low-key a huge twist because it finally confirms that Guillermo isn't just a familiar to Nandor. While they started out as master and familiar, Nandor and Guillermo have become deeply close over the years, with hardcore will they won't they vibes since season 1. Nandor never planned to turn Guillermo into a vampire because he feared deep down that his best friend would never be ready. And as it turns out, Guillermo never really wanted to become a vampire and was just as content with their current setup as Nandor. Now that the cat's out of the bag, however, Nandor must confront his true feelings for Guillermo in Season 6. Meanwhile, there's no longer any point to Guillermo slaving away not just for Nandor, but also for Laszlo, Nadia, and Colin. And apart from finally giving Guillermo what he always wanted, Season 5 also dropped tons of new vampire lore. For starters, when Nandor killed Derek, there's a reason why Guillermo didn't die, even though his sire did. This is why when Derek died, a month's worth of Guillermo's hair suddenly grew out. He had only been a vampire for that long. And this actually lines up with what the show previously established about the death of one's sire. Being ancient vampires, Laszlo and Nadia knew that they would die with their sire, the Baron. But Laszlo neglected to mention to Gizmo the exact effects of a sire's death. Those they created simply revert back to themselves before they became a vampire. Whereas ancient vampires would turn to dust, young ones like Guillermo would only age for a bit. And thankfully, Nandor remembered this to be the case. So after giving Guillermo a taste of what he thought he wanted, Nandor knew that simply killing Derek would reverse Guillermo's vampirism. Moreover, Season 5 also explained why Derek was only half successful at turning Guillermo into a vampire. As Laszlo reminded everyone, apart from giving Guillermo his talent for graceful violence, his sanctified status as a Van Helsing descendant prevented his full transformation into a vampire. While previous theories blamed Derek's youth and weakness for Guillermo's half-vampiric limbo, the problem was literally inside Guillermo himself. As for Derek, he's actually doing fine. In fact, Derek's fate proved that dead intact vampires can be resurrected as zombies.
Hey boys, set a place at the table for our new friend Derek.
Guilty about causing Derek's death, Guillermo and Laszlo take his body to Wallace the Necromancer, who resurrect Derek as a zombie for an exorbitant fee. But Derek's fate isn't exactly bleak. As Nadia and Laszlo's former familiar Topher proves, zombies like him and Derek can eventually speak normally and sort of have a regular life. Given Derek's overall personality and vibe, he may be even better off working for Wallace than at some dead-end job. In these modern times, even the darkest creatures of the night need to take what they can get. Understandably, the Baron was furious when he found out that, after 5 seasons, it was Guillermo all along who was responsible for burning him in Season 1. Yet when the Baron finds out about Guillermo's much bigger Nandor problem, he forgoes vengeance and just gives the young vampire much-needed advice. Even after Guillermo accidentally burns him a second time, the Baron keeps Guillermo's secret, relinquishing the right of vengeance to Guillermo's actual master. And this isn't the only big change the Baron has undergone this season. After having learned the drama between the main cast, the Baron even helped the others push Guillermo to finally confront his true feelings. And unlike the old Baron, he didn't raise a hand to strike Guillermo down even after he outright rejected the vampire life. Before, the cast needed to keep all their dirty secrets from the Baron, but now, he no longer seems to care about keeping the younger vampires in line and is just happy that he's being included. It may be fiction, but it's great to see someone from the oldest generation having an open mind, even if the Baron remains a proud psychopath. More importantly, when the gang inevitably gets into trouble with the Vampire Council again, the Baron's authority as an ancient vampire may come in handy. Until then, the Baron will be chilling in the suburbs with the Sire, the Hellhound, and some equally adorable and horrifying additions to the cast. As if Staten Island wasn't weird enough, Lazo created a bunch of human-animal hybrids in his quest to cure Guillermo's vampirism. And being the mad scientist that he is, Laszlo just unleashed these creatures onto the world. The smaller, chubby reptilian ones were left in the care of the Baron, while the mammalian ones that could talk were last seen saying goodbye to their father Guillermo. Wherever they may be, Season 6 is bound to return to these horrifyingly adorable aberrations of nature. That said, even these kindergarten island of Dr. Moreau rejects aren't the most terrifying things that dwell in the night. While Colin Robinson only ran for comptroller to drain crowds during debates, Colin's progressive opponent jeopardized the very bureaucracy that keeps energy vampires alive. So the Supreme Council of Energy Vampires forced Colin to take the election seriously, threatening bureaucratic torture if he lost. And though Colin exposed himself online to force quit the race, his fake wife Evie won the election for the council. Finally, the Supreme Council of Energy Vampires has been appeased, at least for now. And apart from finally revealing the ruling council behind the unique vampires, Season 5 also reveals that Colin can both drain and impart energy. By discussing interesting facts about his life, instead of being intentionally draining, Colin was able to revive an incapacitated Nandor. And this trick could come in handy again, especially with what could be awaiting the gang in Season 6. After taking Guillermo to familiar urgent care for his broken leg, Nadia was afraid that the doctors would kill him for his Van Helsing blood. However, the doctors wanted to kill Guillermo for a different reason. In his half-vampire state, the familiar was an abomination that needed to be put down. Despite Nadia finding out Guillermo's secret in the worst possible way, she busts him out of urgent care, and the two escape from possibly the most terrifying place in the entire show. But Nadia only killed those who stood in their way while escaping the familiar clinic, which presumably continues to function through the surviving staff. Most importantly, those vampiric doctors still have a sample of Guillermo's blood, which isn't just evidence that they were there, but would be a unique and coveted sample for any enterprising vampire. After all the vampires that Guillermo has killed, and his many other trespasses against the Vampire Council, Nadia and Guillermo may have made a big mistake by letting his blood get in the wrong hands. Indeed, big things are in store for the gang in Season 6. In fact, it's confirmed to be the very last season of What We Do in the Shadows. And now that the bad news is out of the way, here's the good news. Both Guan and Novak and Harvey Guillen, Nandor and Guillermo in the show, have teased big developments to their characters in Season 6. I think sometimes we have to normalize two male friends being really close and not making it sexual. I think that we don't do that in society. Now, will something happen this season that questions that even more, or makes them one way or the other? I guess you'll have to find out. Meanwhile, according to Novak, it's still going to surprise you and delight you and upset you, depending on how much homoerotic fan art you enjoy looking at. Whatever happens to these two, showrunner Paul Sims assures fans that they're planning to keep things light in the show's last installment. What are you looking forward to the most in What We Do in the Shadow Season 6? Tell us in the comments, and keep watching ScreenRant.